What's up, everyone? My name's Adam McDormand, and this is Medium Quality. Right away, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who watched my last video, especially those of you who took the time to write a comment. Whether you agree or disagree with what I had to say in that video, I always really appreciate a willingness to engage in some sort of a discussion. In fact, I find that extremely valuable. Obviously, my channel is still really small on YouTube, but the good thing about that is that it allows me to engage a bit more with people who comment. And the thing that was really interesting to me about the last video is what it was that people chose to focus on. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'll post a link somewhere so you can check that video out. The main claim that I made in that video was that high school students are stressed out because they are under what I consider to be an unreasonable amount of pressure to perform. And for the sake of time in that video, I kind of trimmed down any discussion of what a solution to that problem might be into what was basically a side note. I said that one possible solution would be to find a way to make college free. Now, exactly half of the comments that were posted on that video took issue with that idea of making college free, and rightly so. Even in that video, I pointed out that it would be really impossible to make the university experience free for every American citizen, and that any real solution would have to be devised by someone who's smarter than me. I do want to take a little bit of time to clarify that whole idea a little bit more. So let's compare adult life to something like a game of baseball. And you'll have to forgive me if this metaphor is a bit clumsy. I'm not really much of a sports ball guy. But let's say that hitting a home run is the equivalent of getting a full ride scholarship to some prestigious university. In no way would I be saying that every hit should be considered a home run in the game of baseball, that somehow every American citizen should be allowed the opportunity to attend Harvard or Princeton or some other Ivy League college for free, regardless of their capabilities. I think we can all agree that there's no way that would work. It would be a horrible idea for a number of reasons. What I am trying to imply, however, is that the fight to get a chance at bat needs to be considered. Okay? The more opportunities we can create for people to take a swing, the more likely our team is to score some points. In my opinion, a more reasonable solution would be to create alternate paths to the workforce, ways to secure gainful employment that don't involve traditional university. Thankfully, these kinds of things already exist and have for years. Things like auto mechanic school and training to become a plumber, or heating and air conditioning training, other hands-on things like that. And I think there's room for that model to be applied to other industries. For example, in my study to become an English teacher in college, it wouldn't make sense for me to take 2 semesters of calculus or macroeconomics and microeconomics and also intro to biology. I even work in an industry that highly values well-roundedness, but there are a lot of classes that I took in college that I would consider now to not really have been a good use of my time. I learned the most from spending time in the classroom, trying to learn how that whole thing worked, and then also taking a lot of literature classes. The idea there is that you learn a job by doing the job, and then once you learn what you don't know, it's easier to pay attention to people who do that well and try to learn things from them. I think one industry that's doing a really good job of addressing this issue is the tech industry, which makes sense given that that's where a lot of innovation occurs. At least anecdotally speaking, it's possible to do something like go to an 18-week coding boot camp, learn how to program, and then get an entry-level position as a computer programmer. And that solution, if you think about it, is driven more by market forces than top-down regulation. So that's an industry that took care of itself, that solved the problem. Obviously, some job fields need to remain tied to steep job requirements, like doctors and people who work on rocket ships. But outside of that, I think there's totally room for fast-tracking certain industries to get people working. If you think about it, though, in order for this whole thing to work, employers are going to have to start shifting the way they think about evaluating candidates for potential entry-level positions. If candidates are taking skill-specific training, that's likely to be a much better indicator of their ability to do a job well than a college degree, especially since the relative value of college degrees has been eroded by this untrue statement that you have to go to college, that you have to get a degree, that you have to have that piece of paper. And I think our ultimate goal should be to get as many people as possible working and contributing to society. And so I think it would be a good governance, if nothing else, to consider throwing some money at these more hands-on, job-specific, skill-type training to allow people to have the skills necessary to find gainful employment and to support themselves with some dignity rather than being tied to government aid. And certainly if we consider the rise of automation that's looming on the future of humanity, we're going to need people like mechanics and engineers and programmers to support the rapid innovation that's happening in that area. And that's my opinion on that. Please do me a favor and let me know in the comments section below if this helped you to clear up any misunderstanding about what I meant when I said free college in my last video. Now, that whole thing has me thinking about whether or not a video like this one can even be part of a fruitful conversation. In the past, I've always thought that trying to participate in some polite discourse would always be a net positive. I'd have the opportunity to cultivate my own understanding by sharing ideas, and in return, other people would benefit from whatever tiny amount of knowledge that I have to offer. And really, I'm a strong believer in this kind of social learning. I take my ideas and I smash them against other people's ideas until all of the sharp edges are worn off and I have something that actually works, something that actually makes some sense. The tricky part of that is that this whole process takes place in public, on YouTube. And what's worse is that the 90 videos that I've posted before this one, those are these perfect snapshots of an incomplete version of myself. Even this video is me in transition, me working through a thought to try to understand it better. And at least in theory, this video is permanent. It will always exist. It will always, therefore, be espousing some incomplete thought, which is, if you think about it, a little bit unsettling. That's just how this medium works, right? I have to take the good with the bad and hopefully learn from all of it. And I think that's a really important posture for any thinking person to take in a modern age where the barrier of entry is so low for people to go and shout their opinions into the void, to cast ideas out onto the internet for everybody to interact with. Sometimes I'm right, but often, probably more often than not, I'm incorrect or underinformed. And I hope that no one takes any of my opinions as a personal attack, just because I'm saying something that you don't agree with or that doesn't fit well with your worldview. My goal is to continually engage in the world of thought with some humility. I'm listening and I'm learning. If you're really into that idea, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. If you want to see more, make sure that you subscribe. I'm going to be posting a lot more often on my blog over at mediumq.com, including posting notes for episodes of these episodes going forward. So links, as always, will be in the description section below. Make sure you go check those out. And while you're down there, please feel free to comment about the topic of this episode, your response, whether you agree or disagree. And as I mentioned all the way up at the top of this video, I find that discussion really valuable in helping me to build a well-considered opinion. And also, I just really enjoy hearing what other people have to say. What a time to be alive.